Morning, everyone. It's the weekly live stream from the Age Diversity Forum. Hopefully, you've seen this now as a bit of a regular event. We committed to do this under our Making a Noise campaign. So this half hour is all about making a noise for age diversity, because unfortunately, age as part of the inclusion agenda still is under a lot of people's radar, and we need to amplify the message. We need to show the value, the benefits of having an age diverse workforce. And each week, we're here to talk about the topical discussion points that are going on, but blend that into the more general work that we do each and every day. My name's Steve Anderson. I'm the Chief Exec at the Age Diversity Forum. And I'm here with Sadie. Hi, Sadie. Sadie is our Editor-in-Chief, and keeping us all on track, and particularly time-wise. We're here for a strict 30 minutes, and those of you who know me will know that I can get distracted and go off on all different tangents, so we want to keep to 30 minutes. And I think now we've ironed out all the technical issues we've had in our initial streams. So hopefully some of you are watching this live, but this does get recorded and can be viewed on our YouTube channel. And again, Sadie, make sure that all happens. And so if you go to our YouTube channel, I'm sure we can show a link somehow, somewhere, at some point. But you'll be able to catch up on a lot of our content, including this one. But for anyone who is with us live, we'd love to hear from you. We have there is a chat facility available on this service, and we'd welcome input, questions, contributions, and we'll answer those as best we can. So again, we welcome that. But if you're watching this at your leisure, then please also comment or get in contact with us. And thank you, Sadie. There's our email address that you can contact us at. Any questions, anything that you hear from us that you think, I completely agree with that, or actually I'd like to challenge that a little bit. We're absolutely love to hear from you. As I mentioned, this is all part of our Making a Noise campaign. We started that for this year, 2021, to really put a focus on age diversity and raise awareness and the profile of age diversity as one of the protected characteristics. It is as wrong, as unjust, as illegal to discriminate against age as against other the D&I gender. And this is just one of the media forums we're using. We also have a new monthly international journal. April's went out early this week, so you can catch up on that again through our media networks, particularly LinkedIn and Twitter is where we release that stuff, and through our website as well. Within that journal, we focus on the huge topics of diversity. That includes things like the international nature of diversity and age diversity, that there are no geographic boundaries. What's relevant and a challenge in the UK is echoed in the US, is echoed in the Pacific region and Asia. So these are really common challenges, and we address those challenges, and we offer support and information on what you can do to help have a better environment around age diversity. So please do check that out. Each week we like to pick up on a topic, and a topic of conversation that is topical, and we see activity, whether that's in the media, or various journalist articles. And this week, noticed a BBC article actually that was talking about some results of the pandemic, of the COVID situation, and some of the adverse impact it's had on employment. and to various groups. And this particular article was focusing on the retail sector, which of course one can only imagine how hard that's been hit in terms of lockdowns all over the world, causing shops to not be as operational as they once were, and they've had to find new ways of working, whether that's online sales or pick and collect or click and collect, I think as it's called. But unfortunately, some of those types of retail services just can't survive in such situations. And this particular article was talking about a situation in the UK where some of the larger retail stores across the UK, some of the chains have had a real tough time, and it's resulted in people losing their jobs. And there was reference to one particular lady who had found herself in this, terrible situation of losing her job due to the COVID situation. But being a woman and being 54 years old was finding it extremely difficult to just find new work opportunity, or even finding a work opportunity that she could be a viable candidate for. And there was vocabulary and terminology used in this article that raised my eyebrows, as well as just the fact that an older woman is finding it difficult to get a job. And we touched on that in, I think, just last week, Sadie, last week's conversation. We talked about some of the intersectional nature of diversity, but where age can play a major role in being a very proactive part of that. And I think it's certainly come up in conversation within our own organisation about terminology that is used nowadays in describing certain situations, certain events. And one of the subtitles to this article was that this lady felt that she was being ghosted by recruitment agencies. So, as I say, I think ghosted is a bit of terminology that I've certainly seen to be used more often in recent time. I'm not entirely sure where it's come from, but Sadie, do you recognise such vocabulary and maybe how you've seen it used? And is this a generational thing or not?
I think it very well could be a generational thing. I think it probably, I first learned it from watching the show Catfish on MTV. So that's where I've got that terminology from, and it was very popular in the 2000s. So I think perhaps anyone who would have watched that is probably the people who used it that I know of first. Probably it's probably me used before that, but it was a very niche word, very slang. But I think recently it's become quite mainstream to use. It's become just in people's everyday. You have a conversation with someone, they'll use that term. But I think it does create an almost language barrier between certain age groups, because certain age groups might not know what they mean. Maybe they are being ghosted and they don't know how to describe it, and all they need is that word, and then people will take it seriously. I think it is something that new terminology needs to be told to all generations.
Or maybe someone sees that as a response to, say, a job application, and actually it doesn't understand what that response means. I mean, more generally, a lot of what we see in terms of challenges, certainly for more mature, experienced people looking to get back into the workplace when they're applying for jobs, is that they just hear nothing back. It's just a complete silence. So rather than, let's say, for want of a better situation, an agency, third-party recruitment agency, rather than giving any feedback or response, they just blank someone, so they don't have to maybe confirm that they may have some conscious or unconscious bias towards older people. And the fact that actually when they promote a job opportunity, when they do get respondees, if they see someone of a certain age, actually that's not who they're really looking for, and they just remove them from the process, but without any comment, without any feedback. And I wonder, maybe is this, as you describe it, probably this is a new term that has been maybe used in a slang type way that is becoming more mainstream speak, and aligned to a certain action or behavior that almost someone can hide behind in terms of, and it's sort of okay to say that. And it's, by saying ghosting, we're not saying we're being biased. I don't know. Is it and I guess, is there potentially, there's more types of vocabulary that's coming into mainstream, that's being, as you said, you first noticed it in a show, is that right?
Yeah, so I used to watch Catfish on MTV, and it was all about just the internet and people meeting up online, and then the person they were trying to get with would ghost the other person and they'd never hear from them again. So I think terminology like that coming from TV shows has definitely worked. It used to be niche, but now, because so many people have seen this TV show and they know what it means, and it's become I think that's probably how this ghosted thing starts up.
Yeah.
There's probably lots of other terminology that my generation, for example, uses that we don't even. When I have to talk to people of other generations, I'll change my language because I know that they won't understand everything that I'm saying, and I think lots of people don't do that. Or sometimes you don't recognize that other people don't know what you're on about, and I think it's important that if someone doesn't know what you're on about, you ask them what they're on about, and then they explain it to you, and then you know, and then you can explain it to other people. And I think
so. That's just, I would present that just an appreciation of difference, if you like, and but that actually doesn't mean that in this case someone's less valuable or has is not, in terms of this job application, it is as appropriate for that job application. So I think actually it echoes a lot of what we see and what we seek to change on a daily basis, that organizations are potentially missing out on some excellent people, maybe because of certain practices, but now maybe vocabulary that's being used in certain situations that may not be understood by all. And I think there's always words, isn't there, that come to the fore, new words. I mean, who thought, who ever heard of COVID before this year? But so there's new ways of speak, and I guess the whole social media environment has created a whole different type of way of writing and a way of expressing, and not just words, emojis and all sorts of things. I know I use a smiley face quite a lot in my emails nowadays. But I think there is a change, and I think that is something we should not deter, but embrace through collective understanding and appreciation. And I think we can, certainly from the age diversity perspective, again, focus on one of the other huge topics that we've spoken about, and we will, I know, continue to speak about, the whole multi-generational aspects of the workplace, that potentially you could have 4, 5, 6 different generations working in one environment. And if that environment isn't cohesive and integrated in various ways, including the way we speak, the way we present, the way we interact, the way we explain things, part of the value of that multi-generational aspect is to share knowledge, is to share experience, is to share technical competence and know-how, whether that's IT transfer from a new product, say from a younger person to an older person, or a certain softer attribute from dealing with a certain situation from a more mature person to a younger person, or vice versa, because I wouldn't want to segregate any one of those things to any one particular age group, but it's through that collaborative understanding, through that teamwork, that actually produces innovation. And in terms of terminology, actually, something that I know, Sadie, I mentioned this just before going live, came up in a conversation I was having this morning with hopefully one of our newest champions, all the way from Australia. And we were talking about the intergenerational work within an organisation. And by the way, everything that was being presented as challenges but opportunities in Australia absolutely echoes what we see here in the UK, absolutely echoes what we see in the US, and across the world. So again, absolutely no geographical boundaries to any of these challenges or issues. But maybe there's a slight difference in some of the terminology or some of the slang, because when we were talking about the interaction between younger staff and older staff, this term smashed avocados came up, and I hadn't heard of that before, and it was Lynn presented it in a way that it was almost like a negative expression of how maybe an older worker might see a younger person. And I threw this out to you, Sadie, about smashed avocado. What do you think it could sort of mean?
So I interpret, obviously I've been on the receiving end of things. It's a stereotype, essentially. It's smashed avocados, coffee with soybean milk, and wearing beanies and going to bookstores, stuff like that. It's all like under the hipster thing, but people have switched round this, just having fun with what you're eating and like trying new things. They've switched that round and they've turned it into a stereotype of young people, and it has become a negative thing. Yes, and the media have definitely jumped on that, and it's kind of just escalated it. So it's a difficult thing to navigate.
It's just the way society, education, the working world is now to maybe what some people might have experienced on their career journey. But it's about adapting. It's about, again, comes back to that shared understanding, shared collaboration, and sharing of language, which means hopefully we can begin to at least mitigate, if not eliminate, any of that sort of stereotyping and misperception. 'Cause at the end of the day, that's what all diversity and inclusion challenge is. It's removing that stereotypical thought process from people who, from their own perspective, for whatever reason, they talked about smashed avocados, for example, which is just, it's not helpful in the overall purpose, the overall challenge to, let's say, to at least mitigate, if not remove these barriers. So I guess it's our sort of job, it's our that we've chosen to collate these experiences and these situations and reverse the stereotypes, reverse the negativity, and present ways of and solutions to actually, go beyond that negative thought. Because as soon as you say, as soon as someone has twisted that to a negative situation, just in their own mindsets, they're going to be maybe not as helpful, they're going to be not as transparent, they're not going to be as committed to working collaboratively. And all that means in the business world is it's going to be surely end up as being lower performance, lower productivity, and therefore the organization or the business that one works for just not doing as well as it could do. So a small throwaway casual remark that may have been picked up from a TV show, and And actually, that show that you talked about, what's it called?
Catfish.
Catfish. I only heard that recently, that term, actually. So I don't know if that's a new term or not. And actually, talk about Australia, he says, talk about a guilty pleasure. I heard that on Neighbours.
Yeah.
The TV program Neighbours, I heard that being used. So, and I heard it used, I didn't really understand it. So,
yeah, it's definitely, I don't know where it comes from, but I know it most from Catfish, the show on MTV. So there's a lot of terminology in there, like ghosted, like catfish, that people who have seen the show, a lot of people of my generation have definitely seen the show, and probably the next one up, will understand. And then anyone who hasn't is kind of left in the dark and wondering where these terms come from, when it is just as simple as watching a 20-minute episode of a show on MTV. It's
but it does show though the power of that media, and how potentially quickly terminology and vocabulary and language, certain language used in a different context, can be adopted by people. So it's not an easy task, but it's one that, again, if everyone is on the same page and has a similar outlook on inclusion, that everyone does have value, everyone can contribute, and we share that knowledge and understanding, and we share that vocabulary, then people can move together, can't they? Rather than moving disparately and dysfunctionally and discriminatively, in many ways. So I think it's something that we certainly do, and actually as part of our champion member environment on our website, we've actually got a dedicated resource to some of the myths and perceptions that exist in the workplace, in terms of older people and technology don't mix, and various sort of ideas or stereotypes that just aren't true, basically. So we've got a whole resource dedicated to that, so organizations can review that and use that information to disseminate internally, in discussion, in group discussion, to showcase to all age groups within the workforce that these are merely stereotypical things, and let's get beyond that. Let's be more productive. Let's be more engaging with each other. Let's find and work on the true values and great work we can each bring. We've all got value individually and collectively. So let's really try and develop that culture that provides for much better productivity and better working life. Because again, came up as we were talking today with our Australian friends. It has a ripple effect to an individual's well-being and their self-esteem and their self of value of contribution, at whatever level. So it really has psychological and social value as well. All of this has a positive ripple effect and impact to an individual's way they live their lives. And again, if businesses can be more productive and improve their performance, then they're gonna want to employ more people, and that holds a huge positive impact on the global economy. So from small nuggets, there's great questions that can be answered in terms of the way we live, the way we interact with our fellow citizens, and actually the economy receives a boost. And I think everywhere in the world needs that right now as well, by the way. So again, it's linked to a lot of things we hear from the organizations that we work with right now, that businesses transitioning out of the COVID pandemic, the successful ones are ones that are going to go forward with purpose, with good social values. And a big part of what underpins all of that is their view on inclusion. So let's get a good understanding of terminology. let's speak nicely to each other and not be less overtly disparaging in terms of using things like maybe ghosting or smashing avocados or anything like that. We've had some great ones recently, actually, haven't we? With I was just thinking about the article that we had from our great friend Tony Williams a few weeks ago, talking about boiled frogs. So there's so much great terminology out there. So let's really share and understand and make sure we got positive output from that. So I said I went into ways. Anything else that comes to mind right now? I realise we're pretty close to the half hour already, and just a few other pointers we want to get out there. But anything else?
I'll probably just say that everyone on the internet. I know the younger generations are more likely to be on the internet and to understand it. It is easier for us to learn about new technology and learn about all the new things that are going on and staying up to date, when people who aren't on technology, who aren't on the internet as often as someone of my generation might be, it can be very difficult to get that information across. And especially if there is a barrier when you're actually physically talking to people, it's even harder when you're not on the internet to find out about those things. So that's just back to education. It's just really important to make everyone aware of everything that's going on.
Yeah.
I just want to say,
shout out and invite people to maybe put forward maybe bits of terminology or language or almost throwaway comments sometimes that they may have experienced or heard or used, and we might need to broaden our resource that we already have to really showcase what they mean and how they can be. But yes, the education point is something we talked a lot about last week. And just as we move on from this week, in terms of stuff coming up, we as an organisation have begun some really good discussions with the educational sector about driving some new research and understanding in terms of that multi-generational impact, particularly looking at younger people and students in the educational system. And so we'll be saying more about that hopefully in the weeks to come. What we've also got on the ever nearing horizon is our Champion Age Diversity Day, which is on June the 11th. And again, realising that is rapidly approaching. We invite everyone individually, organisation-wide, to get involved, take part. Next week, Sadie, I think we can have a dedicated live stream for the June 11th, just to give a bit more information about why we're doing it, but as importantly, how organisations can get involved. So we'll be doing that next week, and we've also got some guests lined up. I'll mention Camellia. Camellia, if you're out there, you know who you are. Camelia's from one of our champions, the Financial Ombudsman Service, and they're doing some great stuff on the age agenda. And Camellia has, she's going to be one of our guests in the coming weeks, which would be great. So yes, please keep raising the age diversity profile. We have 2 hashtags that we use all the time. Hashtag Champion Age Diversity. He says, well done, Sadie. Testing you out there. and the other one is under our campaign, Making a Noise. And please use this wherever you can, wherever you like. We're using them particularly on our Twitter environment, on our LinkedIn side as well. But it really helps get the message out there. Quick shout out for Alicia at the Institute of Coding as well. Thank you, Alicia. You're doing some great stuff for us in highlighting all of the content that we're providing. So thank you for that. So we're almost on time. Wow, that's probably a first, Sadie. So, but I think again we've only sort of briefly skimmed the surface on a lot of this stuff, but which is why we're coming back each week to keep keep messaging, keeping the conversation going, because this is relevant now, and I'm sure it will remain relevant for certainly for for the immediate months to come. And so thank you, everyone. Thank you, Sadie. And if not before, we'll see you again next week.